Guys, just thought I'd do a little video explaining how I started my woodworking business during lockdown, how it all started, how it all began, and how it's going now. Hi guys, I just thought I'd do a video explaining how I started my own woodworking business during lockdown, how I started it, um, and how it's going today and how it's materialized. So pretty much in the summer of 2019, I started getting into woodwork. Um, I've always been one of those people who would sit and watch YouTube videos, whether it's on watch making, um, woodworking, van life. I just get immersed in all sorts of really bizarre stuff. And from watching woodworking and seeing that you could just start off with a simple basic piece of wood, whether it be a scaffold board, a pallet board, or some other bits of wood, and create something beautiful, it just kind of intrigued me. So I started looking and thinking of the simplest things that I could make. And I fell upon step stools. Okay. And I'll share some photos of some of the early bits and pieces that I made. And I'd look at these YouTube videos, I'd see how they made it, I'd pause it, I'd write down the measurements, look at the different types of wood. And it wasn't anything fancy, it was literally scaffold boards in the early days. And you can always find scaffold boards on Facebook Marketplace. Um, and I would try and replicate what they did. And again, the good thing about woodwork is the barrier to entry is so low in terms of you don't need any special equipment really. I started off with a sander, a drill, and a handsaw. That's pretty much it. I didn't have any circular saws, didn't have any machinery, anything like that. Um, So I'd watch these videos and I would try and replicate it myself. And it probably wouldn't even turn out that great the first couple of times, but I would try, see how I could do it myself, see how it would turn out. Um, I was learning so many lessons from these early days, from the staining, the painting, the drilling, the pre-drilling, the sanding, other bits and pieces, and a lot of it was just experimentation. So I did a couple of step stools. They ended up okay. I think a couple of them are still lying around the house. And then the pages that I'd follow and look at on YouTube, I'd look at some of the other videos they were doing, and I'd see that they made a simple bench. So I thought, oh, okay, that doesn't look too dissimilar. You're taking over a lot of the principles from that stool and making a bench. So it's just a little bit bigger. So then again, I try and make a bench. Turned out all right. And because it was during lockdown, no, sorry, this was the year before. This was 2019. So I was working as a support worker in a children's home as well. I should just add. So I'd work 3 days on, and you get 2 days off. So I'd have quite a lot of time off. And rather than just sitting on my backside watching Netflix and eating Maltesers, I would invest that spare time into the woodworking. And it went from doing stools to benches to trying shelves. And I was always looking at other things that I could do. I was looking at Instagram. I was then following other people, seeing the things that they made. And it wasn't just flat out copying. It was a case of um maybe putting my own twist on it, doing my own finishes, making it to a different dimensions. But I would look at what other people had done and try and do that. Okay. Um, Now I started doing this in 2019, garden planters for the garden, bits and pieces. Some of the things turned out dreadfully, but it was a big learning curve. And then when it got to the summer of 2020, so in lockdown, and my support worker job was going downhill, wasn't really liking most of the people I was working with. Um, and it was getting to the point where I was getting so many orders because I was listing stuff on Facebook Marketplace. I'd opened an Etsy shop, an eBay shop. I was putting stuff on Gumtree, Spock. So I was listing these things and I was offering, you can buy this from me. Here's an example of what I can make. These are the color options I can do. And I went from just doing 2, 3 different colors to now I've got 14 different colors from walnut to whitewash, dove gray, farmhouse oak. And it got to the point where, luckily, when my support worker job was going to crap, that I thought I'm just going to go all in on the Rustic by Simon and see where this takes me. I was working from home. I was doing it in the garage. Um, Ozzy's growling at a dog and telly. Ozzy, Benji, pack it in. No. Benji. There you go, it's gone. And I thought I'm just going to try and do it full time. And because I was listing stuff online, people will contact me. I've seen this table that you've made, Simon. Could you make me one that's a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller? And can you do it in this color with this style of legs? I'd do it. And then I would ask the customer to send me a photo of it once they got it set up in the home. Then I'd have other example photos that I could then list on my website, start my own website. And in the October of 2020, still in lockdown, I decided I'm doing a video for YouTube. Pack it in. Not very considerate, is he? He wants to be YouTube famous like his dad. I don't think we're going to be YouTube famous, buddy. And about October 2020, I decided to get a unit in the local mill, Copple Mill in Chorley. And because my partner was growing a bit exasperated, because my business, Rustic by Simon, it was called, and it's still called that, because it was taken off, the house was just, I had hairpin legs everywhere, I had scaffold boards in the garage, the boys' bikes were covered in sawdust because I was doing all my stuff in there. I was taking over the garden, I was doing all my staining in there, I had bubble wrap all over the house. So I knew it was time to try and get my own workshop. 450 feet, the first workshop, about the size of a large double garage. Perfect. I could spread out, I could make as much noise and mess as I wanted. And I was in that unit for 2.5 years before I upgraded to my current unit, which again is in the mill. It's this one's about 700 square feet, and it's just down the corridor from where I was before. Literally, I do 99% of everything I do by myself. I have a couple of people who come in and help with the staining. So I've got loads of pre-staining that I need to do on wood on some of the orders, whether that be windowsills, tabletops, breakfast bars. They just come in and help with that, but it's pretty much all me, and it's always been me from the beginning. But I'm lucky really that I've gone from just making shelves, stools and benches to then thinking, I got into the copper pipe stuff, making things out of copper pipe, whether that was shelf brackets or shelves with like a copper pipe rail underneath so you could hang your clothes on it. And I just started adding more and more things to my repertoire, to the point now where I've got 250 items in my Etsy shop. I've got 14 different finishes, color options that I can do on all the different bits and pieces. And yeah, I'd have to say that I took that plunge. And for anybody who is potentially thinking about doing this kind of thing, especially with the woodwork, it's a low barrier to entry. You don't need a lot of equipment. Like I said to you, sander, drill, handsaw. I've upgraded some of those tools now, but you can just pretty much start off with a few scaffold boards at home, which is what I did. But I invested a lot of my spare time in them early days, not even thinking it was going to become a business, but investing my time into doing the woodworking and just enjoying it. And then the bits and pieces I'd make, setting up an Instagram and a Facebook page for my Rustic by Simon. So then I could share examples of the things I made, um, following other accounts that did similar stuff. Gradually, I got more and more followers. I think I'm at roughly 3,500 on Instagram now. I've got TikTok, sharing across Facebook, all that kind of stuff. Um, Occasionally, a couple of times a year, I'll do a giveaway where I'll encourage people to follow me, share a certain post onto the story. Um, so it's a case of I invested that time in the early days on my days off, and thankfully it became a business that I'm able to do. And a lot of the people who were doing it alongside me in the early days, I've had to fold and give it up because it's not really financially viable anymore. A lot of people are still doing it, but it is more and more difficult now because there's so many people doing this kind of stuff. But I am still getting by. Um, but that is pretty much how it went. I will try and share some photos of some of the bits and pieces that I've made and can make. If you don't want to check out my shop and my Instagram and Facebook, it's Rustic by Simon, RUSTIC, then by Simon. Instagram, Facebook, my Etsy shop, TikTok. I'm on I'm on all of those platforms. And yeah, I will try and do another video in the next few days to a week or so about tips for side hustles and getting a side hustle off the ground and what you can do. But yeah, any questions, drop it in the comments and I will try and answer them for you. All right, thanks guys. Speak soon. Bye.